The city of Burlington lacks affordable housing, affecting low-income families, the working class, and the growing college student population. Burlington renters spend 44% of their income on housing, one of the highest rates in the country. There also is a 99 occupancy rate for housing. What is being done about this issue? I spoke with residents, Chris Donnelly from Champlain Housing Trust, and Brian Lowe from the mayor's office to shed light on this issue.
It's really hard to find an apartment. I haven't moved in 3 years. I probably won't move again unless I move out of town because I'm not going to find a better apartment that's more affordable.
My wife and I were trying to get a place around here, and finding a two-bedroom for our coming kid is like $1,200. And we found a place up in St. Albans for $500 a month, and it includes all the utilities. Why is there such a difference for a 30-minute drive?
I have to do a roommate thing because you can't, even working 40 hours a week, I can't afford a one-bedroom apartment by myself.
Brian Lowe, the projects coordinator for the mayor's office, described some of the reasons causing the lack of housing.
In Burlington, you have like a real supply problem. What happened is over the last 15 or 20 years, there really wasn't the construction of any new units of housing. There were about 18 market rate units built in the city's downtown between 2002 and 2013. In addition, you have like a lack of competition among landlords, and so you have potentially properties that aren't appropriately maintained, and so you have the quality of the housing stock deteriorating at the same time as you have a shortage of housing units for people who want to live here. So that's kind of what's driving the problem. A very tight housing market that's very competitive, and developers who don't want to build here. In terms of trying to find below market rate housing, depending on what your income is, you could be eligible to work with an organization like Champlain Housing Trust that does all kinds of good work trying to get people into homes who aren't able to afford market rate housing.
The Champlain Housing Trust, have been active in the Old North End for 30 years. The last kind of block that was left was Bright Street, and there's been a lot of kind of redevelopment in that whole neighborhood to make it a more desirable place to live and for businesses to grow as well. We, in our office, get 150 applications a month for rental housing, and we have at any given time 10 available. The types of folks that are being priced out of the market right now are the workforce. 10 most common jobs in the state, 9 couldn't afford a two-bedroom apartment.
You know, I tried to go through Burlington Land Trust. You got to make a certain amount of money, and then beyond that, you have to have a certain credit. And if you don't have a certain credit after you make a certain amount of money, then you got to take a 3-month class in order to try and get into one of their places. It takes too long. People ain't got time for that. There's a guy who sleeps every night. He sleeps right in front of Children's Space here. I see him every night. I always feel bad for the guy. You know, there's no way that guy's ever going to be able to afford a place. It doesn't matter how many of these he builds, because at the end of the day, people like that, they don't have the money, they don't have the credit, they don't have whatever is necessary.
A housing action plan, created by the City Council and administration, is in the works. The plan addresses development restrictions, ways to create affordable housing, off-campus dorm-style housing, and shelters for the homeless.
When you get to the homeless population, there's a lot of good work that goes on here, but there's also other models that have worked in other cities in ways that dramatically help some of the most vulnerable homeless, like the chronically homeless, and we don't really have those here yet. And so the mayor, again, he's looking at the housing issue, but he sees it as directly tied to homelessness. There's a couple of things in the housing report that are new for the city. You know, one is looking at what's known as a low barrier wet shelter, which is you don't have to be sober to get in here, but on a cold night you can get in here. And also what it does is it allows for access from social services to kind of help get these people in a better spot. And ideally, you help move folks into housing from there. You have to have a good ladder at the very beginning to get people started, and that's really missing here. There's a couple breaks in that chain, and so this housing report is aiming at kind of healing those links as well as increasing the supply. What I'd care about, living here, is there needs to be more units built so that I can find a place to live that doesn't cost me like an arm and a leg, and some of that's already started happening. So it's not dependent on this. Part of it is developers are looking around and they're seeing that the mayor here is actively trying to make these changes, and so they're willing to make investments in buying some of these properties. The city can make regulatory changes, and that'll probably be, over the course of this next year. But it really, what drives it is whether or not the developers think that there's an opportunity to build new housing units here in the city.
For more information, a revised version of the Housing Action Plan will be presented to the public on November 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. at BCA 135 Church Street in the Lorraine B. Good Room, second floor. Reporting for the Defender, this is Elaine Ezerins.